A lecturer from the University of Lagos, Dr. Dan Ekere, and journalist Dari Odufowokan. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you. Good morning.
Right. We head straight to the papers now, and I begin with the Daily Sun. Fuel queues persist in Lagos, Abuja. Federal government probes importation of bad fuel. OK's 13 billion naira contract for aviation. You find the details on the pages of the Daily Sun. To the Vanguard newspaper now, bad fuel scarcity worsens, costs, storage delay removal. Marketers decry lack of space to stock new product. Federal government marketers set up committees to assess situation. NNPC and NMDPRA won against panic buying in Lagos, Abuja, others. We have 20 days stock of or 300 million liters of PMS to close supply gap. NMDPRA speaking there. To this Nigerian newspaper now, contaminated fuel, federal government begins probe. Buhari orders query of regulatory agency. How 10,000 metric tons of bad petrol caused scarcity. And to the leadership, the front page of the leadership newspaper now, adulterated fuel, federal government launches probe as firm fingers NNPC's subsidiary. Details on the pages of the leadership newspaper. And to the Nation newspaper now, silver, government will unravel how toxic petrol was imported. Fear grips petroleum ministry department, scarcity spreads to Osun. To the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, federal government begins probe of adulterated fuel imports. Says no need for panic buying. As OK's 13 billion naira contracts for aviation petroleum ministries, airlines raise alarm as aviation fuel now sells for over 400 naira per litre. And on the front page of the News Direct, federal government to probe contaminated fuel supply as experts fought NNPC over compromise of quality assurance test. You find the details on the pages of the News Direct. To the Business Day now, dirty petrol saga questions NNPC's role as sole importer. On the front page of the First newspaper, adulterated fuel, federal government replacing with 300 million liters of petrol. Once against panic buying, scarcity shuts down cities, paralyzes businesses. We'll probe into this embarrassment, silver vows. And on the front page of the Punch newspaper now, adulterated fuel, marketers fear court cases. Federal government hints at compensation for damaged vehicles. Customers having problems with fuel suing outlets, arresting owners, marketers. 300 million liters arrive in Lagos as NNPC assures customers of 20-day supply. To the Guardian newspaper, industry risks collapse as aviation fuel hits 400 naira per litre. All right, you find the details on the pages of the Guardian newspaper. To the Blueprint now, re-amended electoral bill. Why Buhari must avoid conspiracy by power interests, IPAC. A delay has grave implications for 2023, Sislak. Assent to bill will bequeath transparency, credibility. Albino Foundation speaking. And on the front page of the Daily Trust, leaders reach common ground to save Nigeria. 14 governors, Saraki, Kwankwaso, Ribadu, Dangote, Otedola, others attend Pali. CBN governor, ministers present as Buhari backs movement. We are for national rebirth, conveners are saying there. To the national economy now. Health insurance subscribers to pay more for healthcare services. Hospitals demand higher premiums, cite rising cost of healthcare equipment, rents, drugs. Details on the pages of the national economy. All right, gentlemen, let's look at this trending story, and it's on almost all the pages of the papers this morning, talking about the adulterated fuel or dirty fuel, dirty petrol, as some have put it. The government is saying that it will ensure that it carries out thorough investigation into the matter, how this came into the country, and then also ensure that appropriate sanctions are meted out on those found culpable. But before then, let me begin with you, Dari. The Minister of State for Petroleum was saying that this is the first time this is happening, and that they don't really check for methanol when it comes to products coming into the country. And I'm wondering what this say to you, your impression of the statement he made.
Yeah, well, he's the man in the eye of the storm now. Expectedly, he would come up with some reasons why this is happening. It's just unfortunate that one major kudos that have been given to this administration is the fact that in almost 7 years, we've not had to deal with fuel scarcity in Nigeria. It's the longest length of time that we've been without it. But suddenly, from Norway, that record is threatened, and the minister is explaining the best way he could. That they don't check for methanol, it just show that our checks for standard for quality is still below par, because this is something that is in the product, and they should know that there is a limit of the amount of such that should be found in consumable petrol that could be put to use by the public. But we find ourselves in a situation where only experts actually can, I've been saying this since all this started, that we laymen should be cautious in what we say in this situation, because the fuel is out there. Unless and until you are told, or until something happens to your vehicle after procuring this fuel we're talking about, you and we don't know the difference between the good and the bad fuel. There are those who have been saying it's smelling more than this, it has some funny. You will only find out if you are conversant with what fuel should look like. But as laymen and the ordinary consumers, we are at the mercy of government. And that's where this really becomes very touching.
Right.
Because it is important that government should know that there is nothing too small or too big to protect your people from.
It owes you that responsibility.
Because it is a responsibility. Beyond all this, it is smelling, it is damaging vehicle. You never can tell what other danger it poses to even human life.
Right.
And we allowed this to get into our own environment and being used by our people. Don't forget that we are importing this fuel. It came from a particular producer somewhere who probably would never have released such for use in his own country.
Absolutely.
But because of our own failure to properly guide and ensure standard, it found its way into our own country. And now what are we left with? Explanations. Like I said earlier, we are laymen. We take whatever they say. But I'm happy that there is a promise, and which is they will get to the root of this. We will keep asking, because it could have been worse.
Right, and that is where I'm going with Dr. Ekere. The guest I had before you gentlemen came in was speaking to me about the fact that this is not the first time it is happening, because he is a stakeholder in the industry, and that 14 years ago it happened. And there was a template, investigations went on, and the investigation and the process it went through was to ensure that that incident did not repeat itself. And here we are again. And he said nothing came out of that investigation. Well, he's not certain if anything will come out of this. And I want to ask if you see anything coming out of this investigation that the government is saying it is going to carry out, if we have that political will to see through that the appropriate sanctions are meted out, because a lot of Nigerians, like he pointed out, are already suffering, from this action?
Thank you, Veronica. The first thing we'll look at is that as at the time it happened some years ago, who was actually responsible for importation of, fuel. So that let's assume that created some difficulties in trying to trace it to the root. Investigation became difficult, whatever. But this time around, who is importing fuel? NNPC is the sole importer. So
it has subsidiaries.
We don't care about subsidiaries. It is NNPC we know.
Right.
If you are given a contract to execute and you choose to use any other, so that is
none of our business
at all. You are the one we know. So the question of get to the root of the matter for me is non-existent, because we know who is responsible for this already. It is NNPC. So deal with NNPC and let NNPC begin to feature whoever is responsible for it. So now, but the challenge is, will this happen? Would they actually do anything about it?
That's a question.
Based on our past records, there are a lot of investigations that are going on, and we are yet to see results. What killings, how manner of things, including things of this nature, businesses, people who have been, different accusations are going on. Investigations are going on. Now here is another, but this one should have been simpler. But the point is that things about NNPC, again, they are usually very opaque. Account, we don't get to the bottom. We don't know how much they make. We don't know how much they pay for subsidy. Now, for this to ever happen shows that these people are actually taking us for granted. Because you cannot tell us that, oh, we didn't actually do, we didn't check this, we didn't. Well, these are necessities. They are supposed to be part and parcel of the process that you go through to get this thing in. And in any case, it is the way you've presented yourself that will make a criminal businessman somewhere to give you this kind of a thing. Because I rightly said, this is something they will never release to their own system. They will never allow this to be used in their system. If they don't know how to refine, then let them go out of business. But for as long as they know that there are people who will come and say, give me this quality, because it will be cheaper, then they will remain in business. So the challenge is really in the doorstep of the federal government. Go to the root of it, and you already know where to go. So it's not something that you are going to take, ring barreling, just go straight to an NPC. Pick the MD, the GMD. That listen, some head should roll. Somebody should be held responsible. So at the time you hold that person, the commander is always the one who takes responsibility. Just like we are calling on the president. The president should know who to call on. Let that person, for any reason, go to the root and tell us where it came from. So, but apart from that, what will now happen to people who are suffering the consequence of this particular action?
Absolutely. That's where the question
Vehicles are having problems. Some persons already have some issue of damages. Then what about the independent marketers who have equally, gotten supply from this source? If you have given an open door that anybody can import, there will be, different scenario entirely. But this one, you are the one who brings this into the country, and everybody gets from you. Somebody has gotten from you. He's selling. It was supposed to be his business to begin to find out whether this thing is of the quality, because you are the quality controller normally. So you have brought in terrible product, then there should be damages.
Right.
And these damages, somebody should be held accountable. And I think that NNPC and the various marketers who have had this challenge, something has to happen for us to be convinced that indeed the government is taking us seriously as we should be taken.
What should that happen be?
Obviously, like I've told you, I said to start with, the commanders for every process of this kind are usually held accountable. We know those who should be held accountable. Let those ones begin to feature the details.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, there are those who are tying this to the issue of fuel subsidy. Removal and all of that. And I'm wondering if there is any correlation with regards to what is happening.
Well, I won't be shocked if people are doing that already, because we have the issue of trust in Nigeria.
Right.
We don't trust our government, and businessmen in Nigeria don't trust the people. The people are scared of businessmen. So, and then there is an adage in Yoruba land. This movie I used to watch, as a man used to say, "My people say." So let me say, my people say that a witch cried last night, a baby died this morning. So do you need anybody to tell you that it was that witch yesterday that killed the baby today? That is that. I'm not inferring anything. I'm only saying sometimes people begin to distrust systems based on antecedents. But I want to believe that we should not be too much in a hurry to tie this thing so that we don't give people excuses. This is a clear case of mismanagement of an issue, mismanagement of responsibility. If it is not worse,
it's negligence, really. Negligence.
I don't want to say this is negligent, but we have given them responsibility to import fuel for us. They have mismanaged that responsibility by bringing adulterated, poisonous, dangerous, whatever named fuel. Now we have that on our hand. If we rush to say it is due to fuel scarcity, we may help some people escape punishment. Rather, let's see it as what it is. Somebody has failed to deliver on an assignment. And this is causing serious damages and inconveniences to others. So what should we do in this situation is to ensure that that person or persons responsible for this mismanagement in court is brought to book.
Right.
And we don't have to, like a doctor said, we don't have to search far. When I saw the report that they're going to get to the root, I imagine a scenario where what you want to do is to pick this phone here and you are going to that point to start tracing this phone that is right in front of you. So don't let's make things
overflog the matter.
Let's address the issue by asking the people we know should have answers the questions.
Very good. Now let's move to another matter that is also of concern, talking about ASUU strike. And Dr. Ekere is my if you look at
Dr. Ekere strike.
If you look at the papers yesterday, one of the headlines said that ASUU said that the federal government is dribbling ASUU. And we want to understand how the government is dribbling the union. Talk to us, Dr. Ekere.
Well, thank you. First, let me start by saying that I'm not a member of ASUU ESCO, so I'm just here as an analyst. But I'm a member of ASUU.
Right.
Yeah, so now, if ASUU is saying that the government is dribbling ASUU, I think it should be commonplace to everybody. Because you know that there was an agreement in 2009, and to date we are still having issues with that. So if an agreement that was signed in 2009, we are still talking about implementation. Obviously, the only result is that the one who ought to, fulfill that agreement is dribbling, because it's yet to, deliver on the agreement. Now, beyond the 2000, because that agreement was equally supposed to be renegotiated. There were such clauses that provided room for renegotiation
every 3 years.
Yeah, but not even the one that was signed before the issue of renegotiation was not implemented. Subsequently, memorandum of action and all forms of memoranda were signed. Until the last strike, eventually, okay, this time around we are going to do this, we are going to do that. To date, the issues are still dragging. Obviously, the only thing you can say that government is actually dribbling, because we do know that if this was to do with election, the money will come from wherever. If it was about election, the federal government will look for the money. So what it means is the election is actually superior, it's more important to this country than the education of the people. If you elect people into positions, they are not going to do anything that will make people to be productive on their own. But at the time you educate people, including those who you are going to elect, then Nigerians can begin to do things on their own to earn a living, and life, the country becomes productive. Right. Now you have left a very important segment. There's no development you can get. No society can rise above the quality of its personnel. There's nothing you can do about a country other than to develop the people. How do you develop the people? It's not by giving the 5,000 in the name of you want to increase fuel price and the rest, then you give the 5,000 as a form of a palliative. It doesn't solve the problem. There's practically nothing you can't employ everybody. Government ideally is not even an employer of labor.
Right.
Yes, government is to create the enabling environment for people to, exercise, to exhibit their potentials, their creative skills and the rest, in order to create, means of livelihood. And that can only happen when the people are educated.
Right.
The sector that is supposed to actually, as a matter of fact, when a society is in trouble, so it's education sector, especially the ivory towers. But that's not the situation today, because they know that they have not actually funded the system enough to rely on it. And it's from government quarter you begin to hear of half-baked and all the rest. These are the challenges we have with it.
Let's, before we because we're running out of time, Derek, let's quickly look at the union's handling of these matters with the successive governments. I mean, since 2009, we have been having this, issues. Governments keep inheriting issues with ASUU. Talk to us about the handling of, its matters. Is there even a way that ASUU can deal with a particular issue with a particular, government without the next government inheriting the issue, and then address the education system? Because the system is looking really, it's looking bad, really.
I'm sure you know my sentiments about these things.
Yeah.
Without,
I'm not certain what your sentiments are, so let me not say yes.
With hopes that I will not appear antagonistic to the union, sincerely, I am not pleased with their handling of strikes and demands. I've always said it. When you go out to make a demand, and if truly, because they tell us these demands are germane to the successful running of universities. You told us that since 2009. These demands are yet to be met, and you have been running the university, meaning that you've been churning out half-baked students, and you are comfortable with that? Only for you to keep coming every three years, every two years, to stage a 1-year strike, 6-month strike, go home, sleep without working and collect salary? Then you say they've spoken to you, you go back, without ensuring that these things that you told us are very, very sacrosanct. The running of the is delivered on. I am not comfortable, and each time I hear about ASUU federal government, I just see, like the word that was used, dribbling. I see two football teams about to start entertaining us again. That's what I see. I see two insincere group of people, two people, gladiators, lacking in sincerity in the handling of an issue that is very, very important to our life as a nation, the future of our children. Because I can bet, let them go on this strike again after weeks of resting. Maybe it's whenever they feel they need to rest, they just tell us. After weeks of resting, they will tell you somebody somewhere had made a promise, and they'll go back to work without getting this thing done. I'll wait until a time in this country that ASUU will stand. I'm not saying the students should suffer, but if the students in a particular era would stay at home for others to come in years to enjoy all the things they need to have, I'm for it. Right. But for us to keep doing Tom and Jerry with federal government and talking about
the truth is that except you are looking at it from just a side, should ASUU fund the universities?
I'm not saying so. I've only said they should demand and ensure
that is the demand we've been making.
No.
Now, you see, part of the demand is that we are equally, wishing that even parents and the public should recognize what ASUU is demanding. Fund the university. If you don't fund the universities, my own is to work and get my pay. If you don't fund the universities, I simply do what I have to do, with what is available. Is that what we want? That's the whole struggle, that you should fund the university the way they ought to be funded. It's something that Nigerians should actually begin to demand. Left to us, my concern should be about my welfare. The pay package and all what I take home should be my concern. But I'm equally a parent. That is why this situation is different. That's why ASUU is equally demanding for things that the Nigerian public ought to be fighting. So ASUU has actually taken upon itself the burden of the general public as well. So it is not something that ASUU on its own can handle. If you say stay out, we've done it. And I expected that people should actually come up to say that this thing that federal government keep dilly-dallying, why not you hold government accountable? It shouldn't be ASUU alone, because for me, ASUU should actually leave all those issues and fight for their own rights, their own welfare, because we are a labor union.
All right.
We should fight for our own.
Okay.
But we are expanding because of the nature of the environment, the nature of the sector we are working in. That is just it, really.
All right. There's so much to talk about with regards to this matter, but we'll have to leave the conversation here now. Thank you so much, Dr. Danny Ekere, lecturer from the University of Lagos, and Dario Odufowokan, a journalist, for your time on the program this morning.
Thank you so much.